Alright, Brainiacs, buckle up, it's go time. Name's Hugo the Honey Badger, buzzed and ready, high energy, high facts, and high fives in spirit. No guts, no glory. Here's a brain teaser. Which island slurps fresh water, parks giant supertankers, and hides stories from ancient kings to sneaky pirates? Perfectly perplexing. Kharg Island, also called Kharg or Kharg, a rockin' hotspot in the Persian Gulf near Bushehr, northwest of the Strait of Hormuz. Tiny on the map, huge in power. A huge oil, like whoa. Kharg is Iran's main oil export hub. Up to 90% of the country's oil products can sail from here. That's like a giant soda fountain for tankers. Fill her up. Deep water is the magic. Many coasts are shallow and slumpy, but Kharg drops deep fast so massive ships can pull in close. It can load up to 10 supertankers at once, which is a tanker traffic jam, but like organized. Storage, think mega honey jars. About 30 million barrels can sit in tanks, and pipelines snake in from offshore fields with mighty names like Faradun, Darius, Cyrus, and Ardashir. Plus oil arrives from big onshore fields like Avaz, Maroon, and Gaxaran. It's an oil octopus with hoses under the sea. Terminals, Kharg Terminal with a long T-shaped jetty, Sea Island Terminal off the west, Darius Terminal to the south, and a gas spot called the Chemco Complex. Busy bees would be jealous, buzzed and ready. Here's a twist. Unlike many Gulf islands, Kharg has its own fresh water. Sweet. That means gardens, date palms, and people living long term. For an island out in salty seas, that's like finding a secret juice box. And now hold on to your fur on this next bit is bonkers. Long before oil, Kharg was a trade stop. Pearls, fruit, dates. Ships cruising between India and Basra would swing by. Sailors even loved hiring pilots here to guide tricky waters, best drivers on the sea highway. Power players kept showing up. In 1507, the Portuguese grabbed it and built a fort to watch the choke point near the Strait of Hormuz. Later, Dutch sailors swung past in 1645 and nicknamed it Delft, like the Dutch city, classy and splashy. Then in 1753, a Dutch East India Company agent made a deal, paid rupees, called it a free port, built houses, and manned a fort with German Catholic mercenaries. Wild and crazy. A church rose in 1757. Even the Bishop of Isfahan moved in for a while. In January 1766, boom, Mir Muhanna of Bandar Rig seized the fortress and out went the Dutch, so control on Kharg flipped like a pancake, hot and fast. British popped in too, with brief stays in the 1800s tied to bigger Gulf games. Later, in the 1900s, Kharg even got used as a place of exile under Reza Shah, and development slowed. Then oil called, everything changed. In the mid-1950s and 1960s, pipelines were laid, and the terminal opened in 1960 for 100,000 DWT tankers. Then upgrades, partnerships, and big builds. By around 1975, Kharg was the world's largest offshore crude terminal, like winning the heavyweight shipping belt. After 1979, ownership shifted to Iran's national oil company. Later, a 1990 deal paid compensation to a foreign company for earlier assets. Grown-up business stuff, boring on paper, but it kept the gears humming. Okay, switching rivers, archaeology time. Kharg holds one of the biggest Christian finds in the Gulf. A monastery complex with cells, a chapel, a library, and a courtyard. Most clues say 700s to 800s. Some think maybe earlier. Either way, a busy, brainy place by the sea. Even older whispers show up too. In 2007, a cuneiform inscription in Old Persian was spotted on coral rock, likely a Achaemenid era about 2,400 years back. The message talks about bringing water and happiness to a dry land. Very Qanat vibes. A Qanat is an underground water tunnel, like a secret straw under the sand. Here's the spicy part. Scholars argue over that inscription. Some say it's authentic, others think it might be a modern fake. The line order is unusual, 5 lines in a funky layout, so tension level is high. Then it got vandalized in 2008. Damage reports disagree on how bad. Serious bummer. Names cause drama too. People argue about what to call the Gulf, and that naming dispute made the inscription extra famous. History and names can be prickly, like Honey Badger, back fur, prickly. The island city is called Kharg. There's an airport and a tall lighthouse called Jazira Ye Kharg Lighthouse. Handy for night sailors. Shine bright, steer right. Security is tight. The IRGC controls access, and people sometimes call it the Forbidden Island. Even so, in recent years, a special permit system began for small guided visits, super controlled, pause for a moment, safety first. History got rough in the 1980s during the Iran-Iraq War, 1982 to 1986. The island's facilities were heavily bombed and suffered big damage. But the rebuild after was strong, like a honey badger bouncing back after a tumble. More recently, March 2026 brought strikes on military sites on Kharg. Reports said many targets were hit, but oil infrastructure was left alone to avoid a giant spill or a global oil shock. Tricky times near a choke point like the Strait of Hormuz. Speaking of the strait, Kharg sits close to that skinny doorway of the Gulf and acts like a traffic light for the world's energy. That's why Portuguese, Dutch, and British powers once circled like sharks. Control the lane, control the game. Names of Kharg itself bounce around. Kharg, Khark, Kharaj, Kharaj. Dutch sailors said Delft, like a traveler with many nicknames. Same island, same big splash. Daydream break. Picture a honey badger on Kharg, sun on the jetty, ships so big they look like floating mountains, slurp some fresh water, crunch a date fruit, watch the lighthouse blink like a giant firefly, then zip across the sea island pier going vroom vroom, Hakuna Matata, but like cooler. Geology and geography make the rules. Deep water equals super tankers, fresh water equals farms, and location near a choke point equals history fireworks. That combo turned Kharg from a pearl stop to a power plug for global energy. Wild bonus nuggets. Kharg could load 10 supertankers at once, but that's a lot of dinosaur juice on the move. Oil swapped and shipped by the hundreds of millions of barrels in some years. Storage like a mega pantry for rainy days. Systems were built to keep things flowing even when storms roll in, political or otherwise. Old stones still whisper. Rock-cut tombs hint at many faiths and cultures mixing here. Sailors, traders, monks. A monastery by the waves. A Persian inscription about water, a fort from Portugal, a nickname from Holland, one small island, a whole library of tales. Okay, now here's where it gets extra spicy. Imagine if 1766 went the other way and the Dutch never left. Kharg might have stayed a free port for ages, and the map of trade could look totally different. History turns on tiny hinges. Squeaky, but mighty. As I said earlier, security stays tight, which is why it's nicknamed the Forbidden Island. But sometimes, with special permits and approved guides, a peek is possible, like lifting the corner of a treasure map. Kharg proves a big idea, place matters. Deep water and fresh water turned a rocky spot into a superstar of ships, science, faith, and fuel. Time to purr about that pearl of wisdom. Next up on the mind radar, the Strait of Hormuz. Narrow waves, giant stakes, and maritime mysteries. Brace yourselves for a crazy ride. That was a wild ride. Kharg, the orphan pearl of the Persian Gulf, shining with deep water and deep history. And that's the tail end of that tale. For real. Stay curious, pause for a moment, then pounce on new knowledge.